Hello, good morning. Just a little fun jam there. How are you all? Happy Monday. Thank you for joining me here today. Today we're going to be talking all about the latest update on the SP404 MKII, update 4.4. And thank you to Roland for sponsoring today's stream. Just a little weird beat I made yesterday. I don't know what you guys think of that weird little style, but I made that beat while exploring some of the new features of the SP404 MKII in this new update. So I noticed in our poll today that there's actually quite a few of you that don't have a 404 and said no, but I want one, and quite a few of you that said looks cool but I'm not sure, and then some of you even already have one. So if you've got questions about the update or just general questions about the 404 MKII, I'm happy to answer them for you today. I did drop a video on two of my favorite features of the 404 MKII that have to do with looping, and I'm going to go over those today, but just know if you want to know more about the looping aspect of the 404 MKII, that you can go check out that video. But how's everybody doing on this Monday morning? Let's not get into business so early, my friends. It's a new day, it's a new week. Some of us will be experiencing a solar eclipse for the first time in a long time. So how are you all doing? Ah, yes, there's already questions about the little device on the side. Hang tight, Connor. I'll drop a link in the chat in a bit, but remind me if I forget. Thank you all for joining me today. I'm so happy to be here. Good morning, Kayla. How are you? Thank you for being here. What's good, Wesley? Nice to see you. Good morning, Aodi. Good morning, ADRX Ray. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for being here. Let's see. Blaze FM says, I bought a 404 MKII on 404 day and it arrived on Saturday. The current state of the 404 MKII kind of reminds me of the MPC 1000. I'm not too educated on the history of that machine, the MPC 1000, but it does feel like after all this time the SP404 MKII has been out, the way they've continued to support it with updates, and not just like little quality of life updates, with like kind of major feature additions they've added in addition to quality of life updates. I agree, we're in a little bit of a renaissance time, I think, for this machine. It's very cool to see. And as many of you all know, I have been trying to build out this kind of standalone setup, something that is, you know, not dependent on using a DAW. And I've been doing a little bit of stuff on like push 3 and everything, but I'm finding that push 3 is quite big, and some of the performance things, there's just some limited features, some disappointing limited features on push 3 when it comes to live performance. But I'm finding that including the 404 MKII as a part of one of the setup that I'm building, which I've done a couple of videos on now, or alluding to it at least, pairing this with like a sound, a device that can generate sound, and I can play like an instrument like the OP1 or like the Yamaha SEQTRAK, has been a great pairing. So I'm feeling really good. What's up, my friend Design Studio, watching from Ukraine? Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're doing well and staying safe in a difficult time. Goodness, Christina says, I was on vacation when the update launched. Happy to be home so I can try the update. Nice. Yeah, and I've traveled around a bit with the 404. My first time visiting South Korea, I brought the 404 as my kind of prime music making device. And that's the thing. I just love having a single device that I can carry on if I want to make music on the go, versus carrying a laptop plus a controller. You know, a standalone device is just becoming more appealing to me. I don't know how you all feel about that. And now, especially with some of these new workflow updates, like the looping especially, that's why I made a dedicated video specifically about the looping. That greatly improves the workflow, I would say. Hornet says, never been on one of these streams, but I've recently gotten into music stuff, so I'm going to try to soak up as much info as possible. Thank you for joining. Welcome to your first stream ever. Everybody welcome Hornet in the chat. And if you're out there in chat and this is your first time on a TAETRO stream, say hello. Let us welcome you appropriately. Thank you for being here. This is a very positive, supportive community we've got going here, so definitely sit back, hang tight. Is anybody able to experience the eclipse today? I would love to hear from you. What are your eclipse plans? Blossom says, I would love to have some device that you can make music with without having a whole setup, having to set up a whole laptop and keyboard and all that. Yeah, it is quite, especially for the sessions that I like to shoot, like outside, outdoors. You've got the laptop over here, and then you've got the cable to the controller over here. Then you're trying to see your laptop screen. It's like a whole thing. Whereas even if I add a second device, like even if I add the OP1 field to this setup or the Yamaha SEQTRAK, I can go without the extra device, first of all. But then it's not that heavy of a lift to just add a secondary device in there. Not to mention, I carry like an iPad mini, super portable, right? And of course, this update came with some, but integration with the Koala app, which is like basically a 404 for your iPad. Here, let me bring that up. I'm not going to be demoing this feature today because of the way everything's wired and to get sound, but now you can essentially connect your 404 to the Koala app and use them interchangeably. Use SP-404 MKII to control your Koala app. So you can be even more mobile. You could have just been in the coffee shop making a beat on your iPad, and then when it's time to perform, you break out your SP-404, connect them up, and then boom. There's no like transferring over left and right. You know, it's like bring it up right here. A lot of cool things to talk about with this update today. Celestine Prof in Texas. I'm planning on going. It's a little cloudy, so I'm hoping I can still see it here in Dallas, Texas. Well, I think the thing with the eclipse is, regardless of if you can see the crossing, it will still get dark as if it's nighttime, right? So I think that's going to be cool to experience. Dustin, I got to ask you, what do you think about all this update talk? I know you're a 404 fan. What do you think? What do you think, folks? Yeah, so we're not going to get into every single factor of the update today. I'm going to pull out a couple key points here that we can start talking about. All right, there was a question about the little metering device, which is really cool. I'll show that off in a second. Let me get the link for you, though, because it is from an Etsy shop named DigDug DIY. I'm going to drop this link in the chat now. DigDug DIY. Now, when you go to that shop, you're going to see a lot of cool stuff, but you're not going to see this cool little meter here. I got all my effects on still. I have some non-update related things, too. The more I've been working with the 404, I've been just getting to know it better. So I've gotten into a couple of features that aren't new, but have greatly helped me. So this little meter you can see here, see all the transients coming out, the waveforms. And there's other, let me see if I can remember which button to push. Not that button. This one. And there's different like modes of the transients you can see. So this is just an Etsy shop. This person makes these things. And I thought it was just a really cool piece of equipment that I could add into my videos and stuff. Just scanning through the different modes. Little cool piece of tech. I don't know. I just like being able to see my sound. You know what I mean? Sound is so in the air and so ephemeral, I guess. That it's cool to have it here. Anyway, Dig Dug DIY on Etsy. I just dropped it in the chat. You're not gonna see this in the chat. I mean, in the store, because he makes like drops. So like he'll make a bunch of them and then they sell out every time. So what I did was I just signed up for Dig Dug DIY's newsletter, and he will send it, or they will send an email every time they drop new items, and then you got to look out for this one. I missed out on a couple times picking one up because I was too slow. Good question there. As soon as I find my chat, I'll put that good question on screen. Isn't the looper basically the pattern sequencer? Interesting question. Let's talk about it. All right, let's start getting into the updates, and I guess we'll start right there with DAP1 World's question on the looper. Isn't the looper basically the pattern sequencer? No, and here's why. The pattern sequencer is more like MIDI. Well, it is MIDI, essentially. So if I look at my patterns here that I have on the 404, if I play this back, let's play a basic one back here. If I play this pattern back, it's playing different samples from over here. So you can see these pads lighting up. It's playing my kick. It's playing these percussion sounds. It's playing these synth sounds. It's playing back MIDI. So I could go in and delete things. I could also... I can then go and edit these patterns. I could take things out of the pattern. I could put things back in, right? So it's MIDI. The looper is you're getting right into audio. So let's go into the looper, which is now, if you remember, usually when we hit mark, that will bring us to skip back mode, which is the mode that's recording everything we're doing at all times for 40 seconds at a time, I believe. But we do a trade-off where we no longer have skip back mode on the mark button, and instead we have the looper. So we can switch back and forth between them by shift and, oh, let me get out of the looper. Shift and, am I wrong? There we go. As long as we're not in the pattern mode. Enable skip back, okay. Then if I use mark, we're in skip back mode. Do that again, and now we're in looper mode. So you can go back and forth between them. Okay, so like I was saying, to your question, DAP1 World, the pattern sequencer is sequencing MIDI. It's a pattern that you can go back and alter and change later. With the looper, we're doing audio. And I really like this, especially as a means of getting a song started. So let me go into the looper now. You can hear right away we get a metronome. We can change the BPM of our looper. We can be on auto trigger, which will either the recording will start as soon as I press the record button, or it will wait until it gets a signal. And then we can choose the measures, up to 4 measures, or free. We can record up to 16 seconds in the free mode, and then 1, 2, or 4 bars if we want a preset measure size, which I think is pretty cool. We also have control over feedback and level, which let's bring the level down a bit so we don't blast anything out. So, for instance, I can also change the routing. Routing is on mix. I'm going to change the routing to external in. And I've got my OP1 here, right? So let's record a quick loop. 2, 3, dun, 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 dun. Let's do higher. All right, let's record that in. So now I'm going to hit the record button. It's not recording yet. It's going to record as soon as I make a sound. 3. So I have that loop now. I've actually turned the level down too much, so that's why it's coming out quite soft. Okay, but now I can just quickly, easily hit copy, and that is saved as a pad. This is really cool for a couple reasons, because I could just quickly, easily record a melody idea and automatically get a cohesive loop. So I can turn that off, and now I have a cohesive loop here. And obviously it's set to the BPM. And I'm just going to ease this envelope here a little bit on the attack and decay and whatever. Okay, but that's just saving that as a quick, easy sample. If I jump back into the looper now, that loop is there. And I can play with it. So now I've turned the rate down. Let's just save a version of that too. So of course, let's go back to 100%. I can overdub on top of it. I messed with my level again. My order of operations is a little messed up here. I shouldn't have changed the level. I'll turn an effect on for this. Hornet, I see your question there. It's a really good one, and we will definitely cover it. So the looper's playing. I'm going to go into overdub mode, which turns my metronome on again. 1. All right, and we've overdubbed. Let's go ahead and copy that in. I gotta stop it from playing, then I hit copy, then I pick a pad. So this fluid process is something that I would be doing in a DAW, so I'm very excited that I can now do it on the 404. Of course, now that it's in as a sample pad, I can do whatever I want to it. So, yeah, the thing for me about the SP404, I'll just say this right at the top. My workflow with the SP404 is usually like a very slow, very experimental process where, I have to sneeze, I'm going to try to make it through this sentence. Very slow experimental process where I take a lot longer to find where I want to go with my beat on the 404. All right, we got it out now, so we're good. And I think that is by nature because of how deep of a sampler it is and how deep you can go down the sampling pathway. As Hornet asks, what exactly is a sampler? My understanding of music production hardware is basically limited to my MIDI keyboard, so I don't know what all of these other devices are used for fully. Well, think of it like this, Hornet. Like with your MIDI controller, you're controlling a bunch of virtual instruments, right? Like maybe you've got a piano sound in your DAW and you're playing that piano. Maybe you're tweaking effects or whatever. That, like a DAW usually contains a sampler. Like Ableton Live, it contains a sampler. The SP404 MKII is a sampler through and through where you've got to give it audio. And then the fun part is you take that audio like we just did and you mess with it and you make it your own. So right off the bat, we recorded this loop. It's at 150 BPM, so I could go ahead and make a beat just around this little melody loop. Or I could manipulate it. I actually like how it sounds in reverse. Sounds pretty cool to me, but what if we added some effects to that? So now I have all these effects that I can add on top of the sample too. I was also using these effects to perform earlier, right? So it's effects that I can then use and apply to my sound in my sample, or it's effects that I can use to then perform, which I would say the 404 excels at being a sampler, but many people also use it as a performance device. So I think that's why it's such a beloved thing, because it does the sampling thing so well, but then you can easily turn it into live performance mode, essentially. So, for instance, we have this, I put a touch of cloud delay on there, which is becoming one of my favorite effects. Let me show you another now new feature. So we can resample, right? So those sounds that I just recorded, I can now apply effects to them, but to have those effects be on the sound permanently, I need to essentially re-record them with the effect on. Does that make sense? This is what we call resampling. We've already sampled the sound, but now we want to add a little more, change that sound a little bit. So now we're going to resample it. And now on the 404 Mark II, we can resample or sample a preset measure amount. So there's a little M there. I know that's going to be hard for you all to see, but this is new with the update, where instead of just clicking the sample or resample button and it recording until we hit stop, we can set it to record at a specific BPM. So I'm going to set my BPM of this resampling to 150, which is the BPM of our sample. And I'm going to resample this sample. But I forgot to change my routing. So before I was recording my OP1 field in, which meant that I wasn't recording the sounds of the machine. But now since I'm resampling, again, I'm sampling a sound from inside the box, I need to change that back. So I'm just going to reset my BPM there. We're going to record for an even 4 bars. When I start making sound, we should start recording. Oh, I gotta do my BPM again. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So that recorded, it recorded an even 4 bars. And now, remember, I reversed this sample. I can hit reverse again and unreverse it. This sample here is like permanently like that. It's printed audio. Does that make sense to everybody? I sampled that sound with the looper. I saved it, changed it a bit, added some effects, then resampled it so I could permanently have it as a sample. And then the rabbit hole goes deeper because now you could repeat that process again, right? I could alter this sound. And that's why like I get lost in the process with the SP404 in a good way, because I just keep going down that rabbit hole and try to continually change up sounds. So there was a good question, another good question in the chat to go off of Hornet's question. What's the difference between a looper, sequencer, and a groove box? Well, the thing is, those things are different categories of things. A looper, a sequencer, those are, I would say, a groove box is a thing. A groove box is a machine that does a certain set of things. Usually, a groove box will have a sequencer built in. And when we say sequencer, I can relate that to the pattern sequencer here. I'm sequencing a pattern with all these different samples. Now you could have another device that's not a sampler at all that has a sequencer, right? You could have a synth that you can sequence the synth notes. That's different from a sample. Synthesis is different from sampling audio. A looper is kind of a version of a sequencer, but a looper is usually looping audio. So remember we talked about the difference between the pattern sequencer and the looper? With this loop that I have here, I can't go back and change this pattern. It's audio. It's already like printed audio. I can't go back and take this note out like we can with MIDI, right? That's the difference between pattern sequencing and looping. So a groove box generally is something that you're expected to be able to make kind of like a full creation on, full beat, full piece of music on, because it'll have synth parts, it'll have drum parts, you'll be able to sequence them, you'll be able to make patterns. That's generally what a groove box is expected to be. While those other things, a looper and sequencer, are usually features of machines or software. I hope that makes sense. Hey, Beta Run, nice to see you. Happy Solar Eclipse Monday. Are you experiencing the solar eclipse today? The waveform thing is by Dig Dug DIY. Look them up on Etsy. All right. Oh, where? Joshua, I love the versatility of the 404. I've been using it as an interface, as a sampler, and a DJ controller, even just practicing finger drumming on it. Nice, nice, nice. Very cool. All right, so I'm going to demo those. Let me demo those features again because I can show them off in a different way. I'm going to delete that loop we already made. And I'm instead going to play some drums in. Let me find some interesting drums here to play. Instead of having preset measure amount to 4, I'm going to set it to free. And I'm going to use this like a traditional looper where I'm going to punch in and out of the loop. So by doing that, what happened is instead of the BPM that was set, actually, I can demo this better. Here, let me delete that pattern actually. Because we have the metronome going right now, right? I can turn the metronome off. Forget about how it says 150 BPM here. That doesn't matter. If I set it to free time, it is going to detect the tempo I'm playing at. There we go. So I was playing at 153.51 BPM, whatever that means, right? So that I just wanted to demo that because you can do free time too. So if you want to start a song and you just had an idea in your head and you don't want to set up the click, you can just record in your first loop and then go ahead and start recording. Let me record on top of this. I'm going to turn auto trigger off. That has overdub. Now I can also undo that. Took that hit out, brought it back in. We have undo and redo. So to me, if I'm starting a track, this looper is kind of the new way that I will be starting most of my tracks, I think, on the SP404, because I can just easily, especially if I'm doing something external. We can, of course, let's go back in here. We've had this, we've had the routing set to that. Okay, that's great. Let's go here. So not only am I looping sounds from external, I'm also able to loop the sounds from the internal. That beat's way off, but you see the process there. So I think a lot of the demos that I'm seeing for this are usually people demoing it with like guitar, like showing it off almost like in a traditional guitar looper way, which is cool. And they've even added MIDI support, so you can use a MIDI foot switch to trigger the record, overdub, play, stop, which is cool. But I also think if you're not a guitar player and you're like, well, how does this looping thing apply to me? I think you could still easily say like it's very, very useful, not just for a guitar player, for instance. Since there was a lot of talk about the looper versus the pattern sequencer too, another example, since we're not working with MIDI, is quantize. So I played this like very offbeat pattern here. There's no way for me to go in and quantize that now, where if I had instead sequenced a beat with samples from the pads, I could go in and quantize that. I just love being able to change the time in real time on the looper. And I also just changed the bar length. It's a little glitchy and weird and off. I want to just save that. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And this is my problem. This is my problem with the sampler, is I just can't stop. And if you're hearing that sort of like tape hiss sound, gosh, why is that so dope? Oh, not pattern. It's because that tape hiss sound is because I have sort of like what I would call master effects, like on my bus 3 and 4 is what it's called on the 404. I know some of you are new to the 404. So there's effects buses, bus 1 and 2. Those are the effects that I was using to perform with. So I could turn on my delay. Well, it's not. That's a bad example. I could turn on my reverb. Right? I could turn that reverb on. I could turn it off. The effects on buses 3 and 4 are actually effects that are on everything. Everything that you're hearing that comes out of the 404. So right now, I have a compressor and the cassette effect on my buses 3 and 4, which colors the overall sound of my track. So you heard that beat I was playing before. Here's what it sounds like without those master effects. With so you can definitely hear the difference, but that's something I need to be cognizant about when I'm resampling and sampling, because it'll print those effects onto the things that I'm resampling, but then it'll run them through those effects again, and it's a whole thing. So you just have to be thoughtful. The thing with the 404 is small box with a lot of features. So if you're bouncing back and forth between like wanting to perform and wanting to compose, there's a lot of different processes for all those things that you can go really deep with. I think that's another reason it's a beloved device. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Let me just chop that really quick. Boom. And I'm going to change that starting point. So here's another example of like easy sampling on here. I just quickly chopped that. So let's go ahead and assign that to a pad. Oh, what did I do? I accidentally hit the wrong button, auto marked. Boom. Let's go ahead and change that. Menu, assign to pad. Then I go here and I assign those samples to a pad. Chop it up, and then I have those 3 hits. But I can turn the gate off. change that. I don't know what I'm doing with these drums, folks, but I'm just... All right, I'll save those for later. I got lost down the rabbit hole again. Bjamin says, I'm trying to explore ambient music on the SP. That's a very intriguing thing because, of course, you see a lot of like straight up beat music, like beats, like driving beats, dance beats, lo-fi beats. That's a lot of what we see get made with that 404. But I do think there is definitely a space for ambient music on the 404 Mark II as well. Barney, what's good? Nice to see you. Hello. Hornet says, on that note, do you think it'd be possible to sample viola, violin, similar instrument into a sort of rock, guitar / synthy sound? Well, you have a number of effects for you on the 404. So whatever effects you would need to apply to a violin sound to make it sound like that. Like, for instance, there's plenty of like drive and distortion effects on here. And even there's an input on the front here that can support a 1/4-inch cable. You can set the level between mic and guitar. And then in addition to the effects that I talked about earlier, you have input effects. So on these input effects, you also have, all your normal stuff, some reverb, some chorus, auto pitch for singers, vocoder. But then there's also like some amp simulation in here too, which sounds really good on guitar. Where is it? Yeah, guitar amp simulation. And you've got different amp types, different drive, etc. So I think that would actually be very easy to do. Can you confirm the envelope section of the tone generator is not functioning yet? Let's go into the tone generator because many people are asking about it. All right. What is the tone generator? So I actually used it in that beat that we opened with today. So check out this sample. Those sounds are made from the tone generator, and the tone that we started with was this one. Just a simple tone. And this is an example of, my sampling rabbit hole. We start with that tone, and we go further and further down. Adding effects. So we got there. So let's talk about how we got there using the tone generator. I think this is a very welcome addition too, because sometimes you just need a sine wave, or sometimes you just need a saw wave, right? So if we hit Shift, record setting. No, get out of pattern mode. I always forget to do that. Shift record setting. That gets us into the tone generator. We can change the type of tone that we're going to generate. And immediately we have a chromatic scale for us. We can change that though to this is just a basic sine wave now, right? We can change the note as well. I'm just changing the root note of this scale, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. Let's just set it back down to C. We can change the frequency. Basically, this mode that we're in, it's just going to give us we're just working to make one sample of a tone. And having access to these keys and these notes is just for us to get a feel for what the tone is going to sound like when we turn it into an instrument. So I can change different types of waves. And these are just different starting points. Saw. Obviously, that's a lot different from the sine waves that we've been hearing. changed. Pulse wave, noise. So if you need any kind of sound, saw, sine wave, noise, let's pick a triangle, for instance. We can change the pad length. So if we want this to be a full 10-second tone, we can do that. Let's just crank it up to 10 seconds to do that. And we can also change the balance. We can have this be a mono right, mono left, or just generally change the balance. And let's change the octave. And that's that. So the purpose of this is so that we can create a tone that we can then later translate into an instrument. I hope that makes sense. So to the point there being, all right, let's select a pad to save that on actually. Let's go into Bank D. Let's export it. So now we get this 10-second tone. Well, you might be saying, why the heck would I want this 10-second tone? Well, we can either, well, first of all, we can go into chromatic mode and we can play it, and they've added new scales into chromatic mode as well. Let's just go into a minor pentatonic scale. One thing I wish they would change about the scale mode on the 404 is instead of giving me the notes in the scale and just the notes that are not in scale are turned off, why not just give me purely notes in the scale across all 16 pads so I have access to more notes at the same time? Okay, so we have chromatic mode where we can play this tone now, but I think what we would probably want to do is do something where we transform this sound. And I can, of course, do that by adding effects. This is cloud delay. I could filter it. I'm not going to filter it just yet. I could do a phaser. And I could do lots of other effects. Let's do, for instance, let's do this. This is a nice. It's kind of a nice little feedback there. Or I could turn that cassette effect on and make things nice and lo-fi. So now we've gone from just a basic tone to something I might want to use in a lo-fi beat. So then we would use the resampling process. And we don't need a preset measure amount here. We can record here. Finish. So now, again, back to our concept of resampling that I know some of you folks who are new to the 404 might want a better understanding of. We have that sample with all those edits applied here. Original, resampled version. And then don't forget that part of the point of this is to be able to play. And then we could, again, like I talked about, the rabbit hole of the 404. Bardcore. Yeah, we're getting into the Bardcore. All right. Does that make sense on the tone generator? So I think a couple people pointed out saying like it's very, very basic. And that is true. But if you are in a jam and you just need like you want to make a quick lead instrument, you want to make a quick bass instrument, you want to just get crazy with that tone generator in the chromatic mode, it's better than not having it. So it's definitely a welcome update in my mind, for sure. And as B Jam had pointed out earlier, I don't know where the chat went, but it works well when you're using it in conjunction with a MIDI controller. And that is how, so like for me, I would have never come up with this. Let me turn my effects back on. That's purely created from the tone generator. And that inspired a whole beat for me. All right, there's people talking about, I really want to show this off first. Groove function, this is huge. So if you have just some typical loops, actually. So here's a shaker loop that I have. It's pretty funky, right? It doesn't sound like that totally straight ahead, straightforward shaker loop, does it? It's got a little push and pull to it, wouldn't you say? Well, that is because I'm using the new groove function. So let me now play for you what that shaker loop sounded like before I used the new groove function. I'm turning everything off. Here's what the shaker sounds like without the groove function. Straight up, normal shaker sound, right? However, now with the new groove function, we're able to humanize that sound. I have 3 levels of humanization, low, medium, and high. I'm just going to crank everything up for the purposes of this demo. We've got that up at high. Now, I'm going to start turning the groove knob. Now, in the manual that I have, that I've been referencing for this, it hasn't exactly explained this, but I assume these values here that we're seeing 8 and 16, right? And then we're seeing little arrows next to them. I'm assuming that that means the humanized feel means the 8th note, if it's pointing that way, is dragging. It's like a little slow. And then 2 arrows means a little more slow. Forward arrow means it's playing a little ahead of the beat. Same thing for double. Now I'm going to crank the rate up. So that's completely transformative. Again, I'm going to go back to nothing. Just a straight up shaker loop. Bring that humanization in. To me, that just elevates a lot of beats because you can easily just grab a nice percussion loop, which I'm always grabbing percussion loops, shakers, top layer percussion, and sometimes they're a little too straight ahead, but layering that in here on this beat, that's a little off and weird. It fits so much better. Can it automate the groove options? That's interesting. So you'd want to motion record the groove options. I haven't tried that yet, but I would probably opt for your suggestion and resample it instead. And now with the resampling, where you can resample like an even 8 bars, if you wanted to do that, you could record 8 bars of that shaker loop while you change the humanization function. And that's actually a really cool idea, Dustin. Super cool. So that's going to work especially well with drum beats, straight up rhythmic tracks. I think it's not going to perform as well with something that's more melodic. What else did I do in this? Another beat I was working on yesterday. I want to talk about a couple things. The more I work with the 404, the more some of these things have helped me. And they're not even necessarily update related, but I just wanted to get all of your opinion on them. Oh, hello, Miss Nadia. How are you? I hope you're doing well. So, a few things that I've started doing. One thing is like basic SP-401 is using the effects buses more effectively. So if I have 2 effects buses and I can put different effects on each of them, I should also start splitting my sounds so that one collection of sounds goes to bus 1 and another collection of sounds goes to bus 2. Every SP404 performer knows this. I finally took the time to start doing this, and I think it makes things way better. So I have drum samples, right? All these drum samples, and then as I showed before, I have some more melodic samples. And you're actually going to notice that they're 2 different colors, right? And that's because they're going to the 2 different buses. So if I wanted to, for instance, on bus 1, let's go ahead and play a pattern. I'm going to add effects just to the drums. That's a reverb just on the drums. Or I'm going to use that cloud delay. All my melodic stuff is staying untouched because I'm only working in bus effects 1. If I want to change that, let's add effects just to the melodic stuff. It sounds way better when you split the 2 things up because your beat can stay intact rather than, your entire piece of music getting run through a single effect, So that's one thing I've been doing. The effect that I keep going to now, these days, is the cloud delay. I'm adding like really cool textures to the beat with this cloud delay. And what I'm doing is changing the window size that it's using to get the delay signal, and then changing the balance in real time. And if I keep the window small, it's pretty interesting. This is another thing they did too. They added a warning if you put the same effect on bus effects 1 or bus effects 2, which is a good reminder for me. 'Cause sometimes I'm like adding an effect somewhere, and I'm like, oh, I'm in the wrong bus. I can also change the pitch. If I change the pitch and the balance at the same time, I can make these cool little fills. And then you can easily mute the buses too. So if I ever just want to drop the drums out, I can do that. Another pro of setting the different types of samples to bus 1 or bus 2. If I get a 404, I'm going to name it the 3 a.m. machine. Not the 4 a.m. machine, Accent Noir. I mean, it's perfect for a 3 a.m. machine, I think, because that's the time where you're feeling most like 3 a.m. is such a strange time. You're feeling, I don't know, something mysterious about that hour. So making music on a device like this makes a lot of sense. I like sampling my drums with the effects on them and then using the bus effects for other things. What do you use the bus effects for, BJman? I would love to hear it. Or what do we got here? Leah, waiting on delivery of the Yamaha Reface CP. Nice. After months of should I, shouldn't I? Looking forward to having fun with it and using it with SP404. That's a great pairing, especially with all the looping functionality and things that we talked about here today as well. All right, should we talk about sample merge? Because that's another new function that they added here. So sample merge means now we can take up to 4 samples and merge them into one sample. Why might you want to do that? Well, there might be a lot of reasons. Certain drum hits you might want to do that for. Like if I wanted to turn that into one single sample. Yeah, so I have these different percussion samples. This one's more of a click. That one's a click too. This one's more of a... They're just different forms of clicks, I guess you could say. And then that one's got a bunch of reverb on it too, right? So let's try that. Shift resample. And then I can select up to 4 that I want to merge together into a single sample. Then on the screen here, we also have the ability to change how, the percentage, the volume of each one. Let's go ahead and select a target pad to save that to, and hit enter. And there you go. We have that. The pitch sounds different because I didn't resample the pitch on that other percussion instrument. So it was just in the settings. So I could pitch it down now if I wanted to. So I have a new unique percussion sample that is a combination of all those other samples. So that was a very easy process, first of all, and that will be a lot of fun because sometimes I'm like, I have this vocal. Sometimes I want to layer vocals. Like if we copy this, actually, let me get out of there. Not you. Copy this sample. Let's go to bank D. Copy that sample again. And now let's change the pitch of this sample. Now I have harmony, right? I have that note and that note. Combine them. Very spooky, right? Let's hit shift resample. Nope. Shift resample. Select this pad, select this pad. Like I said there, you can change the level. There's also a selection between sum and... Let me read this from the manual. I have the manual in front of me just so I don't get anything wrong and I'll give false information. The processing. So you have the sum of the two samples. So the two samples getting combined, and then multiplication, which I haven't experimented with yet. It seems above. In the manual, it says multiplication is like envelope because the sample of the first pad is multiplied for the sample of the second pad. The second pad acts as an envelope waveform. I'm not smart enough to understand it, chat. All right, let's select our target pad anyway. So now, what did I just do? Oh, it was just taking time. We had this sample and this sample. Instead of hitting them at the same time, now I have a single sample. I keep forgetting. The reason that the pitch is different is because see how here on this individual sample we have -5, we have -9. So when I do this resampling, it's not taking into account these settings because these settings aren't printed onto the audio. So when we do this combined sample thing, it is using just the permanent printed audio without those settings attached, which is fine. But the point still being that I was able to now combine those two vocal samples. To make these really cool layers. And then there's another rabbit hole there because now I could combine this sample with these samples again. I like to put my effects printed on so that way I merge the sounds, I get even better sounds. Yeah, sometimes it can get a little messy though if I leave my bus 3 and 4 on with the cassette effect. But so are you constantly doing like resampling, BJamin? Interested to hear your process. Other questions about the 404 chat, let me know. I'm here to answer them. Does it have both internal and external storage? So the storage is on an SD card. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I could pop out the SD card right now and we'd be fine. We'd still be able to work in this project because I believe that's like the internal flash memory. Is that what you call it? Like the memory, the working memory, I guess, that it's working with right now. If I pop the SD card out, we could still make music on this project, but we couldn't access our sample library and all that. RAM. Thank you, Dustin. RAM. So it's not like internal and external memory. You do need the SD card, and you need the SD card for like firmware updates and things like that. I did already go over the live looping thing at the beginning of the stream. My video Victor that I released last week covers specifically the live looping aspect. So you should check that out if you are interested. Either rewind the stream, or just hang with us for a bit and go watch the video later. The great thing is you can make many copies of the same sample to have as a backup in case you don't like something. Yes, that's true. Just constantly, I'm like that too, which is why my 404 projects get very messy. I mean, even from a perspective here, like I have two kicks, one like ultra processed, one kind of raw. But I think my new workflow with the 404 is going to be to start on like bank J over here or something. So all my scrap pile is in these later banks. And then when I'm ready to actually have a song that's ready to be performed or recorded, I'll put them all over on like the earlier banks, bank A and everything. Yeah, exactly, Dan. Each bank is for all the processing of one sample. The banks can get filled up quick if you work like that, which is kind of how I kind of have to stay disciplined, you know? I kind of end up jumping all over the place. Bell, what is your favorite workflow? Whenever I use the SP, it's so cumbersome to get what I want compared to working with a DAW. I agree, it's definitely different than working with a DAW. And all of these, any machine that you have for making music that is like a standalone box, it's never going to feel like a DAW. That is something that I've had to mentally adjust to when using these individual devices. If you go into it expecting to be able to do everything you can do in a DAW so fluidly, you're going to be like disappointed and frustrated every time. So that's why when I use boxes like these, I try to lean into their strengths and understand, okay, what was this instrument created for? The 404, obviously a fantastic sampler, which is why I keep talking about this sampling rabbit hole that I love to go down, because I can stay in this sampling workflow. Eventually I can get to a beat, you know, like, what is this? yeah, that ended up being too slow. Let's go here. I mean, this beat here alone is something I wouldn't have made in a DAW. So I think that is the strength of any standalone box, is like, how do the limitations and strengths get you to a different destination that you would have gotten to if you had... The thing is, all of these little individual boxes have their limitations, whereas your DAW is on your computer, which is connected to the internet, which can get you an infinite number of possibilities, an infinite number of workflows, infinite number of outcomes. And I think at a certain point, that in itself is kind of daunting, and kind of, if everything is an option, nothing is an option. That's what I feel. So it's a different creative flow. I'm not going into working with the 404 being like, oh, I'm going to be able to make the same like precise mix and master that I would in Ableton Live. Not at all. So that's kind of how I wrap my head around it, Bell. I hope that makes sense. Like, approach it like it's a really great sampler that you can get really weird with. But now, even like with the pattern sequencer, the TRX mode, the looper, there's now ways that you can get even closer to making better patterns. So even if I just use this as a sampler, I would still love it in my workflow. Not because when you sit down to make music, you don't have to make music every time. You know what I mean? You don't have to make a new track every time you sit down, or you don't have to be working on something that even resembles a completed track every time you sit down to make music. Sometimes you can just sit down and experiment. I've got like tape machines around here. I mean, the OP1 Field is like a digital version of a tape machine. Sometimes just sitting around and making noise is what I want to do. And I also have this built-in creative time where I try to not make a piece of music. I try to just do sampling. I try to just do sound curation. That way, when I sit down to make music, I get even closer to making something that I like that comes from my own sample material, I guess, you know? Thanks for hanging, Dustin. Gotta head out and pick up my kiddo from school. Hopefully we don't come home with a new dog. Yeah, on your way home, just stop at the 404 store and pick one up. And a gallon of milk, too, while you're at it. Dan Cozy says it's like playing in a sandbox compared to playing on the beach. I like that analogy. Yeah. It's a break from a DAW. I definitely vibe with that too. I've been more and more seeking like ways to get away from the DAW. I mean, I love making music in the DAW and Ableton Live and everything, but I'm looking for ways to get more creative and refresh, you know? Whereas, y'all, classically trained instrument players, they deal with this too. Because every time you have to like break habits. Every time you sit at a piano, play a certain kind of chord. So like pianists have to deal with this all the time. So they build up their fluency. They try to learn different styles, different whatever. But the piano's the piano. Every time I sit at the piano, I have a certain tendency. I play a certain type of chord. Every time I pick up a guitar, I have certain tendencies. I play a certain kind of way. Electronic music is the same. It's like whether you're in your DAW, whether you're in one of these boxes, every instrument you pick up, you're going to have your own tendencies. But if you have a multitude of options and you can start blending those all together, you get something that's really interesting. You know, a year ago, I didn't have a single sampler. Now I have the 404 SEQTRAK, the black box, and most important and the least expensive are the iOS samplers and the Chaos. And what would you say, Rexcellence, is your favorite of that bunch? Which one do you work with the most? The Koala update is really good. The Koala app has mixing and side chaining. Using the 404 with Koala and cover some of the weak points of the 404. I agree with that, King Pagan. Again, we're not showing that off today because of like routing and what it would take to get the iPad to play the sounds and connections for the stream. But yes, now we can control that. Koala is a really, really capable app. Like you said, I think those 2 points alone, mixing and sidechaining, the fact that I can go into any sample on Koala. I'm trying to become, I want to become, I haven't gotten there yet, but I would like to become more of an expert on Koala because it is so versatile. But let me see if I can find this. Yeah, edit the sample. I can filter every single individual sample. That's something I really wish the 404 had, but Koala has, and now we can use them in conjunction. And sidechaining, wow. What a great point. I have found that using the compressor on buses 3 and 4 does result in sort of a sidechain effect, though. Really look forward to making bass one-shots on the SP. Nice. Are you going to use the tone generator Piccolo Black, or do you have other things planned? B-Jammin says, for me, the SP is a song idea starter, no doubt. I mean, where my SP404, now I'm working on a performance setup with it, but previously it's at my other desk where it's like constantly recording everything that I'm doing. So I always use the skip back to just grab these little ideas. And a lot of that actually, my album's coming out later this month, and a lot of the material, sample material from that was created using that sort of fluid process with the 404. I like that. I need to remember that I don't have to make something every time I get to my computer. I can just play around and sample/test things. Thanks for that, teacher. Yeah. Sometimes it's cool to experiment. You know, one thing painters do is when they get a new palette, they'll create, instead of sitting down and making a new painting with the palette, you take your piece of paper or whatever, and you take all those different colors in the palette, and you paint the individual colors, but at different like densities or opacities, so you can see the shades and the tones that you can get out of that palette. And by doing that, as a painter, you have a better understanding of how you can use your palette to get different colors and different tones. If you just jumped right into painting a picture, then you might have some good results, but you wouldn't know the full breadth of what you're able to do, right? So a lot of that type of practice doesn't exist for modern musicians, right? It's not a lot of processes built around that type of practice for musicians. Barney, look up Dig Dug DIY on Etsy. There's the link. I haven't heard of that, Rexlins. I'll check that out. Sean Adams says, I don't remember seeing you do a video on the VersaLab. How different is the VersaLab from the 404? Do they complement each other or compete with each other? They probably don't compete with each other. The VersaLab is an interesting instrument. I believe it's a very interesting device that seems to have been marketed for like the standalone device if you're like a singer-songwriter. Here, I'll bring it up on stream if you don't know what we're talking about. From Roland's channel. Rated up on every level, get props from the guys and the devils. Dressing up black. So it's like a standalone box that you can make beats with, but also it's got recording workflow that's kind of specific for vocalists, it seems. Special vocal processing section, etc. With the 404, I think you could use it in a similar way, but you'll be limited in the length of recording that you can make. So I think probably VersaLab is, well, there's even a step sequencer on here too. I don't know, it is a cool device. I haven't really seen it like take off. I know Lionclad has a session with it. Let's see that. Oh, please tell me. Oh, I thought my keyboard died. Let's see. Yeah. Check out this. Here's them in conjunction with each other. So this is going to answer your question perfectly. I hope. The thing I think you should all remember is that so many devices have crossover in their functionality, but they will each have their own individual strengths. So an artist like Lionclad, you give her anything that has 16 pads and the capability of samples, and she's going to make something great. Let's see where this goes. So main drum samples are here, just straight up finger drumming, not even using the sequencer. Chords and other one-shots are on the 404. Jumping over to just the 404. Barney, you're not allowed to ask anymore. I put the link in the chat already. It's gonna be sold out on the shop. You have to sign up for their email list. Yeah, but this session is, I would say, not a full showcase of the Verse Lab. Dope session nonetheless, but like I said, you give Lionclad any 16 pad instrument and she's gonna be able to make magic with it. So yeah, I think that would be the Verse Lab is probably specifically for like people who want to make linear songs, though obviously as you can see here it was very useful for live performance. And it is intriguing also that it has the step sequencer built in. Yeah, so there's an example of those two devices being used in conjunction. Yeah, that is a dope track. Definitely check out Lionclad if you have a chance. All right, y'all, what questions do you have about the 404? I would love to answer them for you. Let's see. We went over a sample merge. We went over the sound generator. We went over the groove function, pad color for each sample. This is actually something that's one of those little quality of life things. Hey, look, it's me. One of those little quality of life things, but it actually goes a long way. So let's set the pad color per sample is good if you want to know, like, oh, those are my drum samples, those are my vocal samples, whatever, or that's a kick and that's a snare, even if you want to set a different color for those. So we can do that now. Previously, we were setting the pad color. The pad and the sample color are different because pad 1, if you're in pad color mode, pad 1 will be the same color across your projects, across your banks. Now the color being tied to the sample is a lot better. This is the other experiment I was doing yesterday. All right, I got lost there for a second. All right, let's go to pad settings, and then we can turn C3 to go to individual pad colors. But we have to be in pad color mode. So pad LED mode right now is set to bus, which is also helpful because like I talked about before, I have bus 1 and bus 2. Bus 1 for drum samples, bus 2 for everything else. I can change that to pad or sample mode now. So It's another way to like give yourself visual organization. So especially for a performance, you know what sample is what by color coding. Stem export is another thing that is really, really cool. Let's go here. I have this song. So this is actually going to take quite a bit of time, but I should at least show you this because some of you are new to the 404. Oh gosh, let me get the app up here. So there is a 404 app, which you can use standalone or as a plugin. Here's what it looks like. So this is just a reflection of everything that I have going on my 404 at the moment. All those samples that we just made and combined and everything are here. And you can see them, you can grab them, you can drag samples in and out of your SP404 right from here on the app. So if you don't want to work specifically on the device, you want to have a quicker workflow on the computer, you can do that. And then you can also go in and edit the samples, etc. This has been around for a while. This is not new. One thing that is new, though, is if I go to patterns and I pick that pattern that we had before, and drag that pattern here, I'm going to export the pattern as multipad. And what this is going to do is give me stems of this pattern. That's going to take quite a bit of time. So let's kick back, relax, and chat, everybody. And I'll show you what those stems look like in a minute. How is the SP connected to the stream through Ableton? Yeah. So if you see the 404 here, these two stereo cables are the input for the OP1. This USB cable is audio over USB. So this USB cable goes to my computer. And in my Ableton Live settings, the SP404 is set as the input device. Are you on BandLab? Yes, BandLab is great. Love BandLab. In sample merge, is the envelope thing a way to sidechain? Asking from the Guitar Center parking lot. That's a great question. Let's try it. I kind of just got myself caught up here in this exporting situation, but let's try it. So the way to know would be is if we combined like a kick and another kind of sample, right? Like a pad or a synth sample. Yo, Celestine Prof, thank you so much for supporting the music and picking that up. Thank you so much. Yeah, ever since I kind of like been focusing more on Bandcamp, I don't know. It feels a lot better than just sending my music out into the void to the streaming platforms. Randomly hit a button on my PC. This may be a hard question, but what is your favorite feature of the 404 that nobody ever asks you about? That is a hard question. I mean, everybody asks me all the questions, so that's different, but difficult. But what is my favorite feature? It's so hard to say. So hard to say. I think like skip back is a thing that has existed the whole time on the 404. It's nothing new, but having something that's just recording all the time. So when you have a good idea, even if you're just noodling, even if you want to just grab something, you hit a button and you get that as a sample. Like that feels like magic to me. That always has felt like magic. Now the looping function is even more, that for me, that's game changing for being able to make music on the 404 in a faster way. Because previously, if you wanted to record different loops and stuff, you'd have to go into the resample mode and there wasn't preset measures. So you'd record a phrase that was supposed to be 4 bars, but you'd stop recording at like 4.2 bars. So then you have to go in and trim the sample. Then you can never get it quite perfect. But now we don't have to deal with that anymore. So that's crazy to me. I don't care. I'm curious if other people have favorite features that they'd like to mention. All right, what did I just do? What did I just do? Where did those samples go? Anyway, I did this earlier. Oh gosh. I did this earlier. So that exporting finished. And if you see, now I have a folder on my computer and I have Ableton Live open. So these are all the wave files, the stems from that pattern. And if I just drop them into live, you can see that now every individual stem of the pattern is here. So easy. So exporting stems is very dope. All right, let's see if we can answer Dustin's question about this sample merge. So, in theory, sample merge. Make sure I get the process right. All right, sample merge. If I hit Shift resample, I want to select my kick drum. That's not my kick drum. My kick drum. And then, yeah, let's grab that vocal. Let's change that to multiply. So in theory, let me read this again. Multiplication is like envelope because the sample of the first pad is multiplied for the same sample of the second pad. I might not have the final version of the manual in front of me. It might be the one that I got pre-release. Let's try it. So I'm in multiplication mode. This is for Dustin, by the way. Strictly for Dustin. Operation complete. Oh. So that's what it does. So we put a kick as the first sample. I can't really explain what that did. We definitely got that kick impulse. I'm curious to see what happens if we do that in reverse. If we do the samples in a different order. Let's do that. Let's do the same samples again so we have a clear understanding. We're in multiplication mode. Hit next. Save it here. Wait. Oh, I think I messed up. Sorry. Let me try that one more time. Vocal sample first, followed by kick sample. Enter. Save it here. Operation complete. Well, same result, which is interesting. Yeah, it does seem like it's the pitch envelope. I thought it would be volume envelope as well. That's very interesting. Very interesting. Still cool. Remember those? Where did those drums that I sampled earlier go? God, they're here. Yeah, we did go over the sound generator already. Is it polyphonic? So what you're doing with the sound generator, Steven, is you're generating a single sound. So what you're ultimately doing is you're making a tone like that. Where did the tone go? I'm going to find the tone that I generated earlier, which I've already lost. Oh, there it is. That's the tone I created earlier. Creating a single tone, and then we resampled it, and we put effects on it. And then that becomes monophonic. Chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but chromatic mode is strictly monophonic. Though I do suppose you could, what you could do, we could copy this sample. Let's go to the eBank, copy it here, copy it here, copy it here. Now, can make a chord. Probably wouldn't want to do that though. No worries, Dustin, I got you. Microscope and tap recording are overlooked features. Yeah, I just don't use the TREC mode that much anymore. I just find like on most devices that have only 16 pads, it's kind of difficult to do more complex patterns. So I end up not using the TREC mode as much. I must have moved a sample or something. Where is that vocal sample at? There it is. Yeah, I totally did. Delete that. It's limited, but there are endless workarounds. It just takes imagination and the patience to problem solve, which gets really fun. Yes. And then there's a lot of potential for happy accidents on the 404 Mark II as well. Tape Record says the 404 was already great. This update takes it to icon status for me. So many features. Yeah. Well, I think without a doubt, the 404 was an icon prior to this update, but it has certainly in a way solidified its state as such. All right, let's do a little recording. Let's make something. I've been talking a lot, and I feel like I should just be making something. Let's start with the looper. As I said before, the looper is kind of my primary way that I would like to be. Here's the thing, chat. I don't love making music live on the 404 on stream because, like I said before, I end up just doing a lot of experimental stuff that's probably not that fun to watch. Do a little piano. Let's turn that delay down. There it is. This is my handpan that I've sampled. All right, 90 BPM is fine, but we could probably beef it up. And let's do the external input. Let me go ahead and turn off that. I sample things in kind of knowing that I'm going to process them later. Let's do a couple chords like this. Let's record this. Here we go. Oh, I forgot I had auto trigger turned off. Let's turn that back on. 2, 3. Thank you so much, Dan, for reminding everybody. Yes, if you leave a like on the stream, more people can find us. We're live usually every single Monday, so join us here. That's in addition to the videos that I put out on the channel. And I'll have more with the 404 coming soon because I've been rehearsing a live performance for my album. And the 404 has been a part of that. I'm doing everything in Bank J right now, chat. Don't let me forget. Let's save that. Let's layer on top. I guess I can change instruments. Wait for this to come back around, then we'll punch in and overdub again. Just recording these simple melodies. I don't know where I'm gonna go with these yet. That's not quite the right sound, right? Cool, let's change the envelope on that sound a little bit. Let's not actually record that yet. What does this sound like slowed down? That's what I wanted to see. Or even sped up. That's 150 beats per minute. Let's copy that here. Then, if I hit Shift, Pattern Select, I've taken that melody off, but now I'm at 150 beats per minute. Okay, so just that process of starting a track there is the reason I love the looper. I want to see, somebody said something very smart in the chat, and I need to follow up on that. A bit late, but you can use poly in chromatic mode. Okay, yeah, let me make that correction, because I knew that I was wrong about that. I wasn't 100% sure, but now I know. In chromatic mode. Go in chromatic mode, plus hit remain. That's legato. So the chromatic mode is in poly. I hope my friend who asked that question earlier is still here, because that should answer your question about the sound generator. So my point being on the sound generator from that question earlier, they asked, is the sound generator polyphonic? You're generating a single sound that you will then use with chromatic mode. And the chromatic mode does have a polyphonic mode. So there it is. Thank you so much for that correction from DFG. A couple more improvements like merge or fuse patterns and this thing will become perfect. Well, they have something similar now, right? Or you can export pattern change. Is that the difference? What do you see? What does fuse patterns mean to you, Bronco? I would like to know. All right, where did I go? I was doing these patterns. That ain't it. So now from the looper, I got the original tempo at 120 BPM. Let's do a different effect there. Not the saturator, not the stopper. In fact, let's chop that sample from the looper now. Bum, 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 3, boom. Cool, and I am just going to adjust the start point of that. All right, let's do that. Assign it to the pads. We'll go here. Can you just resample patterns and combine them that way? I'm not sure what that question is referring to, Dustin. Sorry, I might have seen it late. Yes, exactly, Dan. Exactly. Accent Noir, you'll be able to come back to the stream. The stream's gonna be public, so any stream that has a sponsor or like serves a purpose. So like today we were serving a purpose, right? We are exploring the new features of the 404 Mark II. So it's something that you can go back and watch. The other streams that we have that are just general like chatting sessions or whatever, they just get unlisted and put into the playlist because I don't know. If you want to watch them, you know where to find them, you know? Let me see how far I can push this sample. I don't want to be in vinyl mode because I don't want to change the timing. However, going off of vinyl mode will result in some curious effects, especially for pitched samples. That's not what I want. Oh, that's not bad at all. I'm going to do that for the second sample as well. So that has the timing, but I want to get out of vinyl mode. Vinyl mode, no. Ensemble. Pitch to 100%. Now we got this pattern. There we go. Cool, cool, cool. All right, I like that a lot. I'm just going to do a quick adjustment on the envelopes, but I'm going to apply it to the whole bank. Just a simple envelope adjustment. All right, now I do wish the sample merge took into account these pitch changes, because now what I essentially have to do is resample these sounds. 1, 2, 3. I'm actually at 150 BPM. That's resampled. Resample again here. Boom. Oh, I canceled the recording. Why did I do that? I guess the BPM doesn't really matter. And I had it set to external in anyway. See, this is why I make a lot of silly mistakes on the 404. I just want to sample merge these two things, but I need to print the pitch on there. Now I'm about to make the same mistake again. 1, 2. One, 2, 3, 4. Why not? All right, let's just demo the sample merge again. Shift resample this one and this one. We will get out of multiplication mode. We'll hit next. We'll go here. We'll hit that button. And then we have this, the combined samples. So those individual samples. All right, let's merge these two now. Shift records. No. Sample merge. Shift resample. Next, put it here. Boom. All right, so there we go. Little envelope fix there. Boom, boom. And like, do you see how much time we are spending on this single sample idea? It's not sexy. It's not like, oh my God, look what he's doing. He's making that beat so fast. It's like a calculated, experimental back and forth process. It doesn't make for great content, but it makes for a really interesting end result. That sounded cool. That sounds cool too. We could do filtering. Back sack and guac. I've been fighting the urge to pick one up all week. I gotta tell you, my friend, I recommend it a lot. So like, let's just say I needed to get this idea down. Now I'll record it as a pattern, making sure that my BPM is set correctly. It's another like kind of like quirk of the workflow of the 404. Every project you work in, it's not like the project has like these global settings. Every pattern you make could have a different BPM. Every sample you have could have a different BPM. And those things need to you need to connect those dots manually. It's not like the 404 knows what you want to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just gonna let this roll in rehearsal mode for a second. So now we have a 4-bar pattern of that. Seems like Dallas Productions for people who love the process as much as the end result. I think that's a good articulation, Sean, for sure. But you can definitely spend a lot of time in your DAW too. Like, it's not exclusive to these devices, but like, I think a lot of this is a sampler, right? So it's like you're going through a sound designing process, and like BJamin said, sound design takes time, right? It's not getting you to, I mean, there's some people who can work incredibly fast on a 404. But I'm not one of those people. Is that what I wanted to end that sentence on? Just experimenting with a couple different effects here. Hey, Dustin, thank you so much for that super chat. You didn't have to do that. $5 for the 404 experimental fund. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. Sometimes I use that cloud delay too much. What does this sound like with scatter? Not that type. Wouldn't let you tip $4.04. It had to be $4.99. I got you. All right, so I'm not sure what I want to do with that yet, but let's let that roll for a bit. We could just let a kick drum go over the top, but I don't want to. What other samples do I have here? I could also import new samples, obviously. You know what? We have this sample anyway. Why not copy this sample over here to that bank that we're working in? Pitch and speed. That's at BPM sync of the bank. Okay, that's good. So let's record that on top of the pattern then. Record that pattern. 1, 3, 4. It's kind of just odd sounding shaker. Alright, so now in those pattern settings, one thing I would like to start doing for myself is working in longer patterns. So let's do a pattern edit, and let's duplicate that now to 8 bars. And let's go ahead and hit copy. So now we have that 8-bar pattern. Instead of waiting, let's go here. 3, 4, 8 bars, yes. You know what? I shouldn't have done that. Let's get rid of this actually. But I wanted to turn the grid off because now I was quantizing 100%, which is not something I want to do. Grid strength, let's bring it down even to like 7%. It's barely going to do anything. thinking about what to go next. This is kind of like clock ticking sound. Let's copy this pattern now. Let's add that snare. I don't know if having that snare is good. I don't know what you all think about that particular snare there, but let's give it a shot. Turn up the strength a little bit on that. What other samples do we have in here that we can add to this? I don't even know what is this beat. Let's copy that. Let's see if we can tweak that pitch enough to make it work in this beat. Now I'm just making copies of these patterns, so I have every version of this pattern. So like, it's not that extraneous of a workflow, you know what I mean? Also, I don't even have the cassette effects turned on. I didn't do yet though is I didn't assign these samples to their bus like I talked about before. So if I go to bus 2, hold remain, set those two samples to bus 2, now when I'm playing with that effect on bus 1, it's not going to affect those chords. Sounds really cool, right? So I would love to capture that. Let's capture just the drum stuff that's happening. So here's what I'm going to do. There's a couple ways I could do this. I am going to copy that pattern, but I'm going to use a feature from a previous update where I can select specific samples that I want to copy. Kick, snare, all these percussion sounds, and then there's one more sound, right? It's the shaker. Where is the shaker? I know you're out there somewhere, shaker. Oh, I put it in bank E, that's right. So everything besides those melodic samples. Let's copy that. So now we have a pattern with percussion only. Okay, and then follow me along here with this process. I'm sure I'm going to screw it up somehow. Now I'm going to resample that pattern. This pattern. We're going to do it. Let's do 16 bars with our preset measure amount. As soon as I hit this button, the pattern's going to start. Then I'm going to start tweaking the effects. Let's do it. So now we have, hopefully, jump back here, we have a 16 bar nice, and I did leave the bus effects on. With all those effects. So that's all printed audio now. Which sounds way cooler than the basic pattern that I made before, right? So now this loop exists as audio. So what I need to do is go to patterns and make a new pattern here and make a 16 bar pattern at that, because that's how long this sample is. Make a 16 bar pattern. I'm going to turn the strength up to 100% because now I'm not playing a rhythm. Now I'm just dropping a sample on beat 1 of bar 1 of this pattern. So I lose the flexibility of like the MIDI of the pattern, but I get all that cool, you know, effect stuff. And I don't have to listen to this all play out. All right, I can hit exit out of that now. And now this pattern. Thank you so much, Kayla. I appreciate it. Hello, Beisha. Nice to see you. Cool. So now we have that. So I think the goal would be get this on top of that, right? There's just one part where it really purrs and it gets me good, man. Yeah, it sounds really good. I love the scatter effect. I really love that. But now it's like, okay, the sample doesn't live, this sample doesn't really live up to, I'm just normalizing that cool factor, right? Let's go into bus 2. I wish that I had on scatter a similar dry wet situation as I did with the cloud delay. Let's see if I can do that. Oh, you want to do gate mode, Dan? I see you. I see you. Let's try to play along with that pattern. I gotta do that, I think. Running out of space. Do this in Bank I. Okay. I'm doing these two pads. I'm gonna hit resample. I'm going to focus. I need to focus, chat, on this. I am going to turn off those master effects. I think they were already off. Now I'm going to go to resample. I'm going to record this in bank I, 1 and 2. Oh, I'm so dumb. No, I'm dumb. Record this here. Now it's waiting for me to start. And I need to be at the right BPM. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Should I do this for 16 bars? I guess so. 1, 2. What do we just do? Do we do 16, 8 bars? What do we do? Okay, record complete. All right, back to patterns. Go here. Record on top of this pattern. 16 bars. Yes, of course. I messed up. Wait for it to come back around again. So I'm curious to see how this gels next to the drums. I'll just start here. All right, and so just like before, we don't have to listen back to it all the way. It's ultra crunchy. It's ultra crunchy. Why just turn that off? I wanted to see if adding like a super low bass line would make it cool. It's a little too all over the place though, huh, chat? What's up, KS Beats? Thank you for tuning in. We're gonna jump off this stream in just a minute, but I'll try to add a little bit of a bass line here. Not with that. Oh, my scatter effect is still on. Is that why I'm all screwed up? Wait. Where is that effect coming from? Is there an input effect on? Yes. When did I put scatter on the input effect? Probably when I was demoing that before. And we'll change the routing to external in now. We'll exit that. We'll find a bass. I need like a more kind of straight up subby sound. We go shift here. Let's find a nice. I wonder if, yeah, even a shorter sound like that could work. and I'm not sure. We'll probably call it a day there. But that was a lot of fun. I'm really glad we ended up with that. But it'll take me like a few hours more to figure out what direction it will go. Any final questions about the SP404 that y'all want to know? Multiple layers of scatter. Yes, exactly. For sure, for sure. Wonder how many times I've vibed through a performer's mistake because they didn't call it out as a mistake. LOL. Yeah, it happens a lot for sure. Yes, the question as old as time. Only you can answer. Only you know what your money is worth to you and how you need to spend it. Crunchy. I can't keep you guys here any longer and just watch me go into that trance-like state. But I love how that sounds. I love the direction it's going. I feel really inspired. KS, you ask like how's making a beat on this one? It's like an experimental, inspirational process, you know. So if you're thinking about picking one of these up, anybody in the chat, check the links in the description. Affiliate links help the channel out a lot. You can watch all my content completely free, and then there's a couple ways you can support the channel completely free. One is buying the gear you're going to buy anyway at no additional cost to you from a link that I have in one of my videos. And then also, if you already have SP404, make sure you get the update. I've linked to that in the description. Thank you to Roland for sponsoring today's stream. I hope you all, if you are in the eclipse zone, I hope you all have a great time. Hopefully the world doesn't end. If the world does not end, I will see you all next Monday for another stream. I might have a video out between now and then. I can't remember. But you've probably missed some videos that I put out in the last couple weeks. So go give them a watch. I might do a talking video again soon. Another little TAETRO chat session. So I'll see all you members over on the Discord. Post your Eclipse pictures if you have them. If you're not a member of our community yet, hitting the join button. It's a good place to be. I'll see you all next time. Thank you so much once again to Roland for sponsoring today's stream. Update 4.04 out now. Another fantastic update for the beloved machine. That's going to be it for now. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been TAETRO. Have a good one.